Hi everybody, welcome to my new
Hi, good evening.
welcome to my new voice panel. It has changed overnight to the three lovely people that are sat here now, who have had all the preparation in the world for this. And they're going to start off by introducing themselves and telling us a little bit about their books, starting with Mark.
So, my name is Mark Richards, and I'm going to start by apologising for looking sort of like a ghost. I don't know how to get the lighting right in my office, but I sort of do have this otherworldly pale appearance at the moment. Um, my three full-length Michael Brady books are out now. That's starting with Salt in the Wounds, and then The River Runs Deep and The Echo of Bones, which has just come out. They're all set in Whitby on the North Yorkshire coast, and Michael Brady was really, if I'm totally honest, born out of a question that I used to ask myself, which was when my daughter was a teenager and going through a slightly difficult period, how would I cope with her if anything ever happened to my wife? And when the book starts, Michael Brady has lost his wife in a hit and run accident. He's driving across the moors, North Yorkshire moors, with his daughter. He's going to start a new life, be a good dad, and going back into the police force is absolutely the last thing on his mind. And then, of course, you know what happens. So we've got three books out at the moment. The fourth one, still untitled, is due for release February 2022. That's it.
Nice, and Awais.
Hello, my name is Awais Khan, and I'm the author of two books, In the Company of Strangers and No Honor. In the Company of Strangers was published in 2019 in the UK, and No Honor is just out. It's just been out for a few months now with Orinda Books. And apart from currently both of my books are going for 99p, incidentally. And when I'm not writing, I am either working or I also run the Writing Institute in Pakistan, which is an online writing school now. It used to be a proper physical school, but now it's, because of the pandemic, it's all online. So it's open to everyone. So I teach creative writing to people from all over the world. And yes, so this is a bit about me. Thank you.
Lovely. And TG.
Yes, so I'm TG, and I write a series of crime books, obviously crime, about a group of amateur detectives called the Bow Street Society, and it's set in Victorian London. There are currently 5 books out of the main series, the most recent one being The Case of the Maxwell Murder. I also write a series of short story collections called the Bow Society Casebook, and the 5th one of that will be out in December. And also, I was a featured writer in the criminal shorts anthology, charity anthology. I was done with the Crime Book Club as well.
Lovely. We've got some hellos from Laura and Donna already.
Hello.
On the screen.
Hi, Donna. Hi, Laura.
Just so you know, people are watching and hopefully buying books. We're going to start off with Sam's favourite question, or one of her new favourite ones, which I love, which is to tell us about the most recent scene you wrote without giving away a spoiler. Do you want to start us off, TG?
Right, okay. So the most recent scene I wrote was for the new short story collection. So it was the last short story in that collection, and it was sort of the solution bit at the end where they're talking to the client in their house in terms of like what happened to the mystery and what their commission they were given. So in that sense, it's, I can't really say a lot about sort of giving it away in terms of what happened. But because going on from that, my favourite bit from that short stories was I had Dr. Weeks, who's the surgeon in the stories. He was actually being sick outside a pub, so that was quite amusing.
Very appropriate as well for it. And Awais, what about you? Most recent scene you wrote?
Yeah, this is a difficult one actually, because then you sort of give everything away. But yeah, I've been working on a young adult book just to see how it goes, and I've been writing a battle scene actually. It happens towards the end. I'm really enjoying it. I never thought that I would enjoy writing YA because it's not my genre at all. I'm mostly a commercial fiction writer, commercial/literary. So this is like a new thing for me, and I'm really enjoying it. And this YA book, young adult book, has, vampirish people, sort of zombies. Yeah, so I can't say anything more, but yeah, I've been really enjoying it.
Are you going to publish it?
Oh yes, yes, I will. But I'll let my agent see what potential it has, and then we'll see where we go with it.
And Michael, what about you? Most recent scene you wrote?
Michael, Mark?
Mark, sorry.
Sorry. I see you give me an alibi straight away, Caroline. Excellent. It's very easy for me because I've just started book 4 in the Brady series, so it's probably easier to talk without spoilers because I don't much know what happens after about halfway through the plot. Scene I wrote this afternoon was just a couple in their front garden in North Yorkshire, retired couple. Amazon man turns up with a delivery for the couple who live next door. They're not in, so he brings the parcel to the couple that are in the garden. Husband says, I'll finish deadheading the rhododendrons or whatever he's doing in the garden. You can tell I need to do a bit of research there on gardening because it's not my strong point. Then I'll take the dog for a walk. Then I'll walk round with the parcel because they'll be back by tea time. And that's the scene. Obviously, what happens is he walks around with the parcel and no answer, looks in through the lounge window. They're very dead and very murdered. And that's where the book starts. So essentially what I've been doing is just playing around with that scene this afternoon and seeing how the conversation between the couple go and just sort of exploring the scene that way. I do find that I like to let my characters talk to me, which sounds a bit of a cliche, but it's not really. I do like to let my characters talk to me because very often they will say things that I'm not expecting at all. So that's the scene. It's pretty much the opening scene in the book, apart from a flashback to about 1975.
Is it really bad that when you said that they were carrying a parcel, that was half expecting the parcel to explode? Is that really bad?
No. It's just a standard delivery, you know.
Okay.
Just a standard delivery from a man in a white van, but it is out in the middle of the North Yorkshire moors, so you know it will wreck the guy's Amazon schedule or DPD or whoever's delivering it, you know.
So, going on from that, Mark, tell us a bit about your settings. Why did you choose to set it in North Yorkshire? Why Whitby?
Okay, so I live in Scarborough, okay, which many people tuned in. I must answer Laura's question. Laura, don't let me escape. I've just seen your question.
I'm going to come back to that one.
Right, don't let me escape without answering that one. I live in Scarborough on the coast of North Yorkshire, which I'm sure many people tuned in will have been to. Okay. I set the books in Whitby, which is 20 miles up the road, because Whitby has got a very, very strong sense of place. It's got Captain Cook, it's got the fishing, it's got fish and chips, it's got the moors, it's got Heartbeat, it's got Dracula, it's got the Goth Festival, which is coming up this weekend. So Whitby's got a great sense of place. So that's why I wanted to set the books in Whitby, deal with the sort of decline of the fishing industry in one of the books and topics like that as a sort of backdrop to the story. But I will say one thing. I thought I knew Whitby really, really well. But I tell you that you simply do not know a town until you plan to murder somebody in that town. You absolutely do not. You know, there's one scene in the first book where Brady goes inside the mind of the killer to try and work out how he did it. And I ran round and round and round this little loop in Whitby to see how long it would take him to get to the alley where he commits the crime. And, you know, love the research, but it did involve running across the beach and the tide was coming in. So it was all a bit fraught. But settings, yeah, that's why I chose Whitby. Essentially, very, very strong sense of place.
I need to buy your books for my dad. He loves Whitby.
Yeah. I want Whitby to be a character in the books.
Awais, tell us about your settings and why you chose them.
So I've, apart from a few years when I was off to study in Canada and the UK, I've spent most of my life in Pakistan and actually Lahore. So Lahore is something that comes naturally to me. So setting my books in Lahore seemed like a logical idea to me. So In the Company of Strangers is actually a book that deals with the high class of Pakistan. So it revolves around the secrets and lives of Pakistan's elite class. So that was basically based on what I'd observed and I over the years, and it sort of dealt with that. But with No Honor, obviously, I had to tackle rural Pakistan as well, which I do not have a lot of experience in. So I had to visit rural Pakistan and see how things were done and everything. But then most of the book is set in Lahore again, No Honor. So yeah, so I just write about Lahore because it just comes naturally to me. Although the next book that I'm writing for Orenda is actually set between Lahore and London, so it takes up. So I'm using the time I've spent in London. I'm making good use of that. So so yeah. But yeah, I think it's just because I find it easier to write about Lahore.
And yours are a bit different, CG. You've got a time and a place for your setting. Tell us more about Bow Street.
Yes, so in my book, they're set in London, but specifically in 1896. I used that year in particular because it's in my research that I've done. I feel that it's sort of that cusp between sort of like the old and the modern. So a lot of technology, sciences, or forensic techniques are all just starting to come in, but they're not quite sort of used in sort of courts of law yet. So it's very sort of fascinating sort of moment of evolution within history and London itself. But I particularly really love sort of visiting London now and visiting particular places, then translating those into 1896 and into my books. So sort of do research what they were like back then. So you sort of get very much sort of sense of place, and also people who do live in London now can actually sort of learn a bit more about the places and the settings that they maybe see quite often, but didn't necessarily know a lot about. But I've always had an interest with sort of history and Victorian London and just the whole sort of era, basically. So that's the main reason why I set mine then.
Wonderful. And I feel like Mark has got a really good answer to Laura's questions. So
Yeah.
we're gonna come to him last with it. So we'll start with you, TG. Have you ever acted out a scene in order to help with the writing process?
No. It's the short answer to that. But I have visited specific places in order to then be able to envision what they look like when I come to describe them. And it's actually quite interesting, some of the old places, that how little they've actually changed. So, for instance, in the second book, the two characters go to the Lily House at Kew Garden, and I'd actually been to Kew Garden before I sort of got to that scene. And so, sort of researching what Kew Garden at that particular house looked like back then, it really wasn't that much different. So, I do really love to be able to visit the place in real life and then be able to then put them into the book. So, in that sense, I will sort of do sort of exercise to be able to sort of, to help with the writing process. I go to museums as well, sort of look at sort of artifacts and that sort of thing. But in terms of actually sort of acting a scene out in my flat, then no.
I think this is a favourite question because one of our authors did once hold a knife to their throat, apparently, to see what it was like.
Yeah.
And it was like the nicest, sweetest lady as well. Awais, have you ever acted out a scene?
Well, I think I'll agree with TJ that no, I haven't. I have actually read it aloud, which if you can call that acting. So yeah, I do read them aloud sometimes, especially with dialogue, because I struggle a lot with dialogue, I think. So I read dialogue out to myself to make sure that it makes sense and everything. So yeah, I think I'm guilty of that, but not exactly of actually enacting a scene properly. So no, I've never done that. But I think it's a good idea. I should actually.
Yeah.
Maybe someday.
Go on then, Mark. Take us away with
Well, listen, Laura, if I die of misadventure, it's going to be your fault, because I'm going to feel that I'm morally responsible to you to act out every scene now. But yeah, I do this all the time. The last scene of the first book, the last scene of Salting the Wounds, is a fight scene on the end of Whitby Pier. I went on the end of Whitby Pier with my youngest son, Alex, and we choreographed the fight scene to see how it would work. We got lots of strange looks, but I find just saying to people, if you just say to people, I'm a writer, they seem to accept any sort of odd behaviour, and they deem it perfectly acceptable. They'll just say, "Oh, he's a writer, you know, he must be mad." So yeah, we choreographed the scene on the end of the pier. I hung off the end of the pier with Alex hanging on to me, high tide, because I think you've got to try and be as authentic as you can. Second book, I'm ashamed to say that I went trespassing on the railway line, because Brady does that. So I went walking down the railway line, did check the timetables first to make sure there was nothing coming. Yeah, and I love the research. I really like the research. It's just the best thing, I think. And there was an interesting point the other day about, in the group, somebody made the point that authors didn't get their research right, and I can't understand that, because I just love doing the research. One of the things that I'm not looking forward to is that next book one, Brady's going on a fishing trip in the North Sea. Going to have to do that to get the authentic smell, taste, views of Whitby from the sea. How rough is it? How seasick will Brady be? Not looking forward to that, because I don't really like boats very much at all. And sooner or later, Brady's going to fall in the sea, and I think probably I shall do that as well. Jump in the sea fully clothed, which is where I come back to Laura. Just because I think if you're going to describe it accurately, something like that, you've probably got to do it yourself. Haven't shared that one with my wife yet, who may or may not be there with a blanket. We'll see. I'll let you know.
I think let's know my new favourite answer.
But I am a firm believer in doing it. It's kind of see it as one of the perks of the job,
If you want to avoid the fishing trip in the North Sea, my dad used to wear controllers.
Did he? Did he really?
Mm.
Right. Okay.
Out of Hull, so could probably give you some answers.
Right. Noted. I'll come back to you on that. There's I think the whole decline of the fishing industry in Hull, Whitby, Grimsby is really interesting. It really is. Anyway, but yeah, I shall be in the North Sea at some point in my writing career.
Fair enough.
Laura says, brilliant answer. Donna wants to know what your favourite first as an author was. Who wants to start us off? What's your favourite first as an author?
Okay, so probably, I think, probably, when you get the book and you hold it in your hand, that's probably the best moment. And they do say that writing a book, publishing a book, is the closest a man ever gets to giving birth. Well, yeah, I think just holding the book in your hand is a lovely moment. It really is. And it's just, I think probably as well, the first time anybody sort of turns to you and says, I've read your book and I really enjoyed it, and I can't wait for the next one. The first time that happens, it makes everything worthwhile. The late nights, the early mornings, just everything.
Awais, your favourite first as an author?
My favorite story, what's it first?
Your favourite first as an author?
Oh, okay.
This is a question from Donald.
I think I'm probably going to go with Mark here. Sorry about being a copycat. But yeah, I think there's nothing quite like seeing a book. But I think also the fact that getting an agent, I think that for me as a Pakistani author was one of the highest points in my life, because Pakistan is a country where writing is not taken seriously. So if you tell someone you're writing something, they'll dismiss you with a flick of their hand. They'll be like, it's probably doing something useless. So to live through that for many years, and then to have someone in the UK sign you up because they like what you've written, that I think nothing beats that high. So I remember when I signed up with my literary agent, Annette Crossland, in 2017, I didn't sleep that night, because I said that, okay, the whole world is open to me now, which is obviously not true, because any agent will tell you that it's not a given that when they sign you on, you're going to get published. It doesn't go like that. But still,
did you do a dance?
I do. I have actually forgotten, to be honest, what I did, but I don't remember doing a dance. But I do remember there was this, those that feeling that you have inside that I don't know how to describe it, which is a bit ironic since I am a writer. But yeah, it's hard to describe that feeling. But yeah, I think that was my uh, greatest high, or as an author. So yeah, signing up with an agent.
Brilliant.
What time is it for you at the moment?
It's 11:30 p.m.
Oh, God.
So it's fine. It's fine. I'm a very late sleeper, so this is pretty okay for me.
Go on, TG. What's your favourite first as an author?
I think as well as sort of holding the book in the hand. I haven't got an agent, so I can't sort of add on to that. But I think for me, it was for the first time actually talking to a reader who was really enthusiastic about the characters and the setting, and just was really just sort of enthused about my writing, because ultimately that's why I became a writer, just to give that joy to somebody of just tell a good story. And I think as long as I've got that, as long as I've achieved that, then I feel like I've sort of achieved my goal that I set out with.
You definitely achieved that.
Thank you.
Aiming for my books of the year.
Yeah. Thank you.
This year. Can't say that about Mark and Awais yet, because I didn't have time to read them overnight. Even I'm not that good.
You've got a weekend coming up, You've got a weekend
squeeze them in.
I'm all right. I'm on half term. I'm a teacher. So
somebody comes trick or treating, you can say, no, I'm reading,
Yeah.
So one of our favourite crime book club questions is we've had going on from favourite first is what your memorable moments as an author. So has anything stood out for you apart from that first book cover or the first agent? What are your standout moments? Do you want to start us off, TG?
I think for me, I mean, I know it might, just because obviously I'll be sort of speaking in the group at the moment. I think for me, one of the highlights was actually being picked for the Criminal Shorts Anthology. That was just such a massive sort of achievement in my mind, just to be able to sort of be picked for such a wonderful collection, but also with so many talented authors. I was just absolutely over the moon. So that's definitely one of my biggest highlights. It was the first anthology I'd actually been able to get into as well, so it was brilliant.
And not everyone who applied for that did get in. I didn't have anything to do with it, by the way. But I know that Kath and Will, who put it together, did actually sort of.
Yes, I did actually do a little dance that time.
Yeah. I reckon I'm far too old to do a little dance, but I do little dances all the time,
I live on my own, so nobody's going to see, so I don't care.
I think it's fine. It doesn't matter if people do see.
Well, no, that's well, yeah. But so I did do a little dance that time.
We once did a whole school snow dance to bring the snow so that we got a snow day off.
Did it work?
It did. On the playground, everybody.
Yeah.
One of my top moments from where Awais memorable moments as an author.
Well, for me, a memorable moment would be definitely it happened a couple of months ago that No Honor was selected as one of the best books of 2021 by Woman in Home magazine. So once again, I'm sort of repeating myself, but for a Pakistani author, this is a huge deal. So for someone coming from a country of 225 million people, where we don't have any publishing industry, we don't have any literary agent despite this huge population. So to get that kind of recognition, even though it's probably not a big deal, but yeah, for me, I felt that it was a huge deal, and it was a huge boost to my morale. And yeah, so I think I was on cloud nine for a few days when I saw that, and I actually didn't even know. So someone, actually one of my followers on Twitter, they sent me this link. They're like, "Have you seen this?" And when I opened it, it was like Woman in Home's best books of 2021, and they were like some really big literary heavyweights there. And to see my name next to them, I was like, okay, this is actually happening.
Yeah.
So I think that was definitely an unforgettable moment.
That's brilliant.
So yeah.
That's really good. Are your books published in Pakistan then?
No, so they're published in the UK, but Pakistani bookshops import them from the UK, which is for the best because otherwise they're at a risk of getting pirated. And my first book has already been pirated, and they're like 20, 30,000 copies in the market right now that I am not going to get anything out of. So they're selling them for 200 rupees, which is £1. So yeah, so that's a huge issue in Pakistan, which is why
Mm.
Pakistan is not really on the radar of the big five because of the fact that everyone here buys pirated books. So I encountered that with my first book, and I was like, I'm not doing this again with the second one. So as long as it comes in from the UK, at least it's an original, and it will take them a little while to pirate it. So I'm like, I'm gonna enjoy those sales while that before that happens. So yeah,
Yeah, fair enough.
so yeah.
Fair enough. Michael, memorable Mark. Sorry, it's because your character's Michael.
Yeah, main character.
Yeah.
Okay, so
What with your characters? We're both
so
M's.
the long arm of coincidence. Okay, my main character is called Michael Brady. Right, name chosen 18 months ago. We've just had our kitchen done, and the last book was written to the sound of falling bricks. And the builder that owned the company that did the kitchen was called Brady Michael Carey. And now I find that slightly scary, you know.
Very
Didn't know
strange.
beforehand, didn't anyway. Really useful because obviously I just sat him down and interrogated him about building for the next book, you know.
Yeah.
So that was good. Memorable moments are just the best thing for me as an author, the absolute best thing, apart from tipping myself off the end of Whitby Pier. It's just when somebody comes back to you and says, I really enjoyed your book, you know, or somebody in the group says, you know, I've read all 3 books in the last week and I can't wait for the next one. And that's because writing is a lonely business. You know, you sit in your spare room, or you sit at the dining room table, or your son's bedroom or something like that. You don't talk to anybody. You exist in your own head all the time. So when somebody comes back to you and says, you know, I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed that character. Really felt I could empathise. You know, I've got a couple of characters in the 3rd book who are on the autistic spectrum, and I researched that to make sure I got those characters right at length, absolutely at length. And a couple of people have come back to me and said, you know, that's a really good, accurate, sympathetic portrayal of those characters, and that makes it all worthwhile. You know, when somebody says to you, you've got your research right and it fits in the story, and that makes it all worthwhile. And Facebook user, when you go in the North Sea, can you record it, please? We would love to see the experiment. Yeah, I mean, probably I've got to sell that to You've Been Framed, haven't I? And get my 250 quid for falling in the North Sea. So I'll do my best. My wife would love to video it for you. So that's just the best thing, is when a reader comes back to you and says, you know, would you please throw yourself in the North Sea, because we're not going to read your book, but we think the video of you coming close to drowning might be quite entertaining.
What will happen then, though, is that you get people like me and Sam who love your book so much that will just stalk you until you come back and irritate you. Oh, this is a good one. So Leslie wants to know if you all have day jobs as well as writing. Start us off, Gigi, because you do have a day job.
I do have a day job, unfortunately, yeah, but I work as a receptionist for a car paint and car park company, and it's as exciting as it sounds. I look after sort of the meeting rooms, sort of the bookings, and sort of, you know, greet people and that thing. But it is really good because I literally do just have work part-time. I also have worked previously for part-time jobs, which end up being full-time. But I have previously also worked for the witness service at the courts. Magistrates Court was really interesting. That was for citizens' advice, so I was able to sort of get to know about how the courts work and trials work, and sort of get a bit more sort of from the other side, sort of talking to sort of CPS and sort of witness care unit and the police, that sort of things. That was really interesting. I did that for 5 years, but say recently I just work as a receptionist.
Awais?
Oh yes, I couldn't possibly survive on my writing income. I do. I work in the family business with my father and brother. But apart from that, like I said, I also run the Writing Institute, which is something I created myself. Because when I came back to when I returned to Pakistan in 2016, I saw that there was nothing being offered as far as creative writing is concerned in Pakistan. And I approached a few universities and schools, and I was like, I'd love to collaborate on a course or something. And they literally laughed me out of the room because they're like, who's gonna even bother studying writing? Nobody's gonna bother with that. So I was like, okay, fine. If the universities here are so avaricious, I'll just go ahead and do it myself. So I teach very low cost courses. So they cost around a 5-week course will cost around £50. So I just want there to be an option for people who cannot afford to pay 2,500 or £3,500 for these courses. So this is what I do on the side, and it's done really well, and I'm very happy to be helping people. So yeah.
That's really good.
And Mark, what about you?
Thank you.
Day job, yeah. I've for the last 10 years, I've had my own business as a freelance copywriter. So I suppose I'm writing all day. So I write copy quite a lot of clients in the financial services industry. So tomorrow, I'm going to be Mr. Dull of Dulltown because I'm writing a 3,500 word report on the budget tomorrow, which I've got to start writing at 12 o'clock and finish by 6 for the deadline. So yeah, that's the sort of day job. It's an interesting thing though that the more of your own books that you write, the more of your own writing you do, the harder the day job becomes, without question. That it really, I'm at a stage now where I was writing something for somebody the other day. The guy's been a client for ages and ages and ages, and we get on really well. But it was just it was just really, really hard work, and there's 800 words, just a sort of regular weekly blog for this guy. Just really, really hard work, and the more Michael Brady I write, the harder I find it to do the day job, and I can see a sticking point coming, or a tipping point where I've got to consciously stop or cut down the day job to concentrate on the novels. But that's a little way off, but I can certainly see it coming.
So Donna is the one who comes up as Facebook user. She's the one who said thank you. She's going to read your books.
Oh right, okay, cool. Hi Donna. Thank you.
Donna, Sam says that Mark's books are amazing, and I trust Sam's judgment, so you're probably in for a good read there. She's also going to read yours, TG, and they're 5 stars from me, Donna, so you definitely need to read them because I don't give away many 5-star reviews. And she's waiting for you to come to London, Awais, to get signed copies.
I'm definitely hoping to visit in December, so yes, can't wait to meet you, Donna.
She must live close by to London then.
I don't know, but we're gonna make it work though. I mean, I usually visit London because I love London. So, but I mean, we can probably sort of agree on a place in the middle or something. So yeah.
Oh, apparently got to see if you'll show us your library.
Oh. Okay, I'll give me a second. I'll show you my library. So I have 4,000 books.
Just a small one then.
Yeah, so let me just give you a.
Okay, so I'm not going to respond to that.
That is like my ideal room. That is. I would love to have that much space for books.
Yeah,
I know it's and there's a little one here as well. So I've been waiting to have a room like this for as long as I can remember. So it has a very special place in my heart, this room. So yeah.
It's amazing. I probably have that many books. They're just not as neatly stacked.
Yeah, that's the thing. You see, it's when you neatly stack them, then you realize, that it all looks so pretty.
Yeah.
They do nothing's as good as books, is it?
No, not at all. Yeah, I spend all my money on books.
Pictures, ornaments. Nothing's as good as books,
And people always on Instagram and on Twitter, people always say that you probably have all the money in the world to buy all these books. I'm like, I don't have the money. I spend all my money on this.
No.
Yeah.
That's what writers do, isn't it? If they were starving to death, that they would buy another book, or in my case, I'd buy a notebook and a pen before I ate.
Exactly. Totally. That's exactly what I'm like, and I also see it as a means of supporting the publishing industry and other writers. I'm like, if other people are buying my book, the least I can do is buy theirs and just support the overall industry. So yeah, I like doing that.
I am not a writer, but I 100% spend all my money on books.
Yeah, guilty.
Yeah, definitely. So, on that basis, if you spend all your money on books, who are your shut up and take my money authors? Who are the people who, it doesn't matter what the book is about, you're going to buy it because it's got their name on the cover?
For me, I think it would be Alan Gorvin. He's a crime author and a fantastic. He writes crime, but he writes it in with a dash of humor. So I've never read any crime book like it. So he's the author of The Kindness of Psychopaths and Better Confess, The Hostage. He's written lots of books, so I would highly recommend him, and I totally pick up his book without even thinking. So yeah.
Go on, TG.
So there's actually two. So there's Anne Bainbridge, who writes Inspector Abbs series of books. So they're set in Victorian era, but they're set in the 1870s. So they're set a few decades before my books. And she's just a brilliant author, brilliant sort of construction of the mysteries and place, sense of place and setting. And I've just finished reading the third one, Speak for the Dead, which is brilliant. I highly recommend. And also her husband, John Bainbridge. He writes William Quest series, which is another brilliant series, again set in the Victorian era, but that is more of a thriller type sort of scenario. So again, anything comes out by them two, I'm definitely all over it like a rash.
Nice. And Mark, what about you?
Okay, I'd pick up on the point just made there, that the importance of humour in books. That however grim a situation is, there is some humour in it somewhere. And you watch so many police procedurals and things like that on TV with not a grain of humour in them, and I think that's a sad thing, because I think everybody wants to find a little bit of humour in the books. So hopefully that's in my books. We'll see. Couple of authors that have influenced me quite a lot in my style of writing is I like very subtle shifts of points of view, and it took me about 3-4 goes to get into Wolf Hall by Hilary Mantel and the subsequent Thomas Cromwell books. I just love the way that she very slightly changes the point of view in those books, and I think some of the writing in that is just really, really good. Also, slightly commercial, but the way Thomas Harris writes about Hannibal Lecter, in making somebody like Hannibal Lecter not quite a lovable character, but a character with whom you have some empathy. How else would you deal with a petty bureaucrat than like how Hannibal Lecter does? Again, the very subtle changes of emphasis, the changes of view, but the way he suddenly puts in how somebody else is thinking about Lecter. I think it's 7 years to write the book. Well, I can believe that. And there's those two books are books that I could always go back to and just enjoy the craft in the writing. There is art and there's moments of inspiration, but there's also craft and just getting the words down on paper and just being basically good at what you do. And I think those two books for me show it very, very well indeed.
Well, if everyone's having two, then I want to recommend one more. So my other author
one theme.
My other go-to author would definitely be A. Chaudhary. She's the author of The Scribe, The Abduction, and the one that's just out, She's Mine. So yeah, she's also crime author. So I think I am partial to crime authors, but yeah. So yeah.
I couldn't limit myself to two. I have so many.
Exactly. Yeah. So that was a very difficult question you asked us.
It was. Right. So carrying on with the difficult questions, favorite character that you've created?
Oh God.
Who wants to start us off with their favorite character they've created?
I'm not going to go first because I'm just going to quote one character and then the others will quote two. So
No, I promise I won't. No.
okay, then my
Sorry.
one character that I liked creating was Jamil in No Honor. So he's the protagonist's father, and the story is basically about Jamil and Abda, who's his daughter. So it's about how his daughter gets pregnant outside of marriage, and then the verdict from the village elder is that she has to be killed for that. And it's about how Jamil stands up for his daughter and refuses to murder her in the name of honor. So that, I think, is one of my favorite characters that I've ever created in my books. So yeah.
TG, favorite character you've created?
It sort of changes sort of what mood I'm in, but at the moment I think, especially because in the last book there was a lot more explanation of his past and sort of how he got to where he is, and that's Detective Inspector John Conway. So he sort of embodies the whole thing about, you know, being a policeman it's not just a job, but it's about a way of life, and just to be able to sort of explore the different friction between like the police and the British society through that one character is what I've always really enjoyed. So he's at the moment he's my favourite character.
Nice. And Mark, favorite character?
Okay, in book 3, I've got a character called Ruby, who is the mother of one of the girls who's been missing for 20 years. I had not the remotest idea about Ruby until I started to write about her, and until she opened her mouth and started to speak to me. And Ruby arrived on my keyboard almost fully formed, and everyone that's read the books loves Ruby. I love Ruby. You know, outside the main characters, as a supporting character, I think she's lovely. She gets things wrong. She makes mistakes. She's had too many men in her life. None of them have worked out. She's lost her daughter. Everything's gone pretty well wrong for Ruby, but she manages to remain optimistic. She's a great character, and I love her to bits. And I'm not. I don't know whether I should admit this or not. Ruby's actually based on a girlfriend I had when I was about 20, and I often wondered how she would have turned out later in life. So there you go. You know, that's the truth about Ruby. But of course, the problem I've got now is that she's been so popular that I've got to work out a way to keep Ruby in the series as a supporting character. And right now, I'm not sure how to do that. But she's so good that I'm not going to let her go. And she's funny as well. You know, she doesn't say the right thing. She's not politically correct. She doesn't mince her words. But she's just a great character, and I'm really fond of her.
So one of Sam's favourite questions to ask, and I feel like we're going to get a great answer from Mark here, is like, is there any research that you found really interesting or done something crazy doing in your case?
Sorry, just say, what was the question again?
Is there any research that you found really fascinating but not managed to include in your books that you would quite like to?
Yes, loads. The books are set in Whitby, as you know. The Whitby used to be the UK's biggest whaling port, and I think that's really interesting. Just the idea of a huge whale being landed at Whitby, the whole town must have come out to see it in the late 18th century. It must have provided employment for hundreds of people. I think the whole thing about Whitby, I've got to do more research on the on the moors. There's some really interesting research that I'm doing at the moment for the fourth one, which is don't really want to say too much about that because I'll give the plot of the fourth book away. But it's about supernatural beliefs on the North Yorkshire moors. You know, Whitby's got a rich tradition of Dracula and witchcraft and things like that, going right back to the Abbey in the 7th century. And I'm just trying to weave a little bit of that into the fourth book. the sort of old traditional beliefs. You know, there are still villages out on the North Yorkshire moors that can be cut off for quite long periods in the winter. Yeah, there's so much research, apart from the sort of mad antics of you know, running around the town and jumping in the sea. The history of the town is so interesting. Really is. You know, just walking across the North York moors. I did a huge long walk across the North York moors for the last book. Yeah, I love the research to pieces. Absolutely love it to pieces. Even just Googling things and Wikipedia and everything. You know, writers. It's great being a writer because you know a little bit about a huge number of subjects because you've had to research them. And I think that's the sort of perk of the job, and I love it to pieces.
So we want you all on our Christines. Awais Khan, your most what happened there?
So for me, I think research. I don't particularly enjoy research, to be honest. But I remember that within the company of strangers, I'd written I had researched extensively about the police procedure. So how the police force in Pakistan is notorious for being corrupt. So bribery is very common. So that's something I had researched and I'd spent a lot of time on. And there was a section dedicated on that where the characters were involved in a police incident and everything. And my editor took one look at it and she's like, "It's not needed. You don't need this scene at all." I was like, are you kidding me? I spent all this time on this. So she's like, "I don't care how much time you spend on it. So just we're gonna chop this off." So I'm like, okay. So I think that's the one chapter that I really felt very sad about, that it had to be chopped off. But yeah, I think that was. But then the good thing is that that research helped me with my second novel. So No Honor has a bit about police procedure, obviously because it deals with honor crimes. So yeah, so it helped me in the second book. So yeah, it's all good now.
On TG.
Well, I'm a bit of a sort of weak spot for going on to Oxfam's antiquarian book section. End up buying quite a lot of books from the 1870s to the 1890s. So I've got a lot of sort of random books. I've got one about workshop tools. I've got one about pottery. I've got another one about upholstery and like fabrics. And so I've got quite a sort of research there that I want to sort of use. But in terms of sort of particular fragments, when I was just sort of looking to transport everything, I came across this fact that just for a short time in London, there was actually electric taxis in the 1800s. So it didn't last very long because the batteries are massive and they couldn't really go very far. But I love the idea of actually somebody at some point riding along in an actual electric taxi in the 1800s. So I really want to include that at some point.
And it's weird, isn't it? Because that's kind of come back now.
Yeah.
And there's electric taxis everywhere.
Yeah.
Leslie's got a question for you, Awais. She says, "Do you worry if you're putting about the corruption in the police that they might target you?"
Fortunately, the thing is that not many people in Pakistan read English fiction, so I think I'm very safe to a great degree, especially I don't think anyone in the police force ever reads at all. So I think the day they do read, they're in for quite a bit of surprise, because you should read some of the literature from Pakistan. I am nothing compared to what they write on the police and everything. So I think the police force will be in for a bit of a surprise if they ever decide to read literature from Pakistani authors, English literature. But I mean, Pakistan is a volatile country. There's no denying that. But lately, it's been very nice, and so I've never felt unsafe in Pakistan. And the thing is that at the end of the day, it's fiction. So it's not like I've written a non-fiction book. So with fiction, anything goes. So yeah, you're allowed to take a bit of creative liberty, and I think it comes with the territory. So I think the day someone does take an issue with this, someone in the police, then I'll post about it on Twitter, and then that should tell them not to mess with me.
Good answer. Sam sent me some questions. I'm just going to check what ones I haven't asked. She wants to know if you carry a notebook around for ideas. So if you're ever struck with an idea, do you have like a little writer's inspiration book?
That's for me?
Well, it's for all of you.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Not generally. But I might sort of make a note. What I normally do is I just go on my phone, I might email myself through my phone, anything like that. But I don't tend to keep a notebook a pencil amount of it, no.
Awais, do you carry a notebook around?
I used to. I still have lots of notebooks around, and I do make notes and everything. But the problem is I'm very much a pantser. So when I do end up writing, everything goes out of the window. So all my planning, all my outlines, they're all out of the window, and I'm just writing whatever comes to mind. So I'm like, why do I even bother spending all this money on these expensive notebooks and everything? I think it's just I think it helps you with get into that mood of writing rather than helping me with the plot and anything. I think it just gets the mood going, and you know that this is your notebook full of dreams and full of the plot and everything. So I think it's good for that. But otherwise, I don't really use them. No.
Fair enough. Mark, do you carry around a notebook?
No, I don't carry a notebook. But like TG, I do email myself. I speak voice notes into my phone. Don't much care where I am. I'll speak voice notes into my phone to the embarrassment of my wife. I take a lot of photos. I take huge numbers of photos when I'm out researching, because I want to make sure that I've got the angles right, that that if you're describing a scene, that it's described accurately. So my phone is absolutely full of photos, just photos for memories and things like that. And then I just write it all up. I write it up in Word, and I use Word pretty much for everything. There's all sorts of sophisticated writing programs, as you know. I use Word, and if Microsoft haven't forced me to upgrade it, I would probably still be using Word 1983 or something like that, because I don't like technological change very much. But no, I do email myself. I do talk to myself. Yeah, I do write things down in the middle of the night. Being married to a writer is really a pretty desperately hard job, and I have absolute sympathy for anyone who's married to a writer, because they suddenly drift off into space in the middle of a conversation. They get up in the middle of the night to write things. They're just odd people. They really are.
But you give us all so much pleasure.
Yeah.
I'm gonna, before I ask you all to wrap it up with a reminder of yourselves and your books, I'm gonna ask you my favourite author chat question, which is, would you make a graphic novel of one of your books?
Sorry, say it again. Sorry, you broke up a little bit there.
Would you make a graphic novel version of one of your books? I've probably asked you it already because it's my favourite question. But yes. You can answer anyway.
Yes, I think my stories would work really well as a graphic novel. So yeah, I would love to be able to turn them into a graphic novel, I think.
Awais?
Well, I don't think that my first novel would actually make for a very good graphic novel, but I think No Honor does have it in it to be a good graphic novel. So it has those hard-hitting scenes and everything. So I think that would make for a good graphic novel. Absolutely.
Mark, would you make a graphic novel?
Yeah, absolutely. Why not? And interestingly, the other thing that I would make out of my books is a Netflix series, if by any chance Netflix are watching and are writing a check for $1 million as we speak. I think my books would make a great Netflix series.
That is the dream.
Absolutely. Count me in as well.
Oh yeah, me too, yeah.
We need like a UK CBC representative to Netflix.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if anybody in this group wants to act as my agent, happily give them 15% of $1 million, Yeah. But I think whatever formats your books are in, if you're telling a story, all well and good. Yeah, brilliant.
So Laura's got a nice comment on. She said she will be investigating Awais and Mark's books further. She already has yours, TG's, when you kindly put them on offer. They meet next month's theme in her library's crime bubble. So she'll be aiming to read book 1 for that.
Thank you so much.
To finish off, do you want to, we'll just go back around. We'll start with TG this time. Give us a reminder of yourselves and your books. So if you've got a book cover to show off, that's even better.
Okay, so as I write about the Bow Society, it's a group of detectives set in Victorian London. So each member of the group has an ordinary job in addition to being detectives. So you have an architect, illusionist, artist, and then they use their skills and knowledge from their ordinary jobs to investigate the crimes that the society is asked to look into. So depending on what the case is, depends what gets called in. And the first book in the series is The Case of the Curious Client, and the most recent one is The Case of the Maxwell Murder, and then the first short story collection is The Case of the Chicken Shopkeeper and Other Stories.
Nice. Awais?
Thank you. So I, like I said, I'm the author of 2 novels. So in the Company of Strangers, this is what it looks like. Although this is the South Asian cover, so the UK cover will be orange, but you can get it on Kindle, so it's all the same for Kindle. So it doesn't really matter. And No Honor is also out. It's this is what it looks like, and it's out in the UK, so you can get it for 99p, both in the Company of Strangers and No Honor. They're both available for 99p on Amazon UK. And yes, enjoy this little trip to Pakistan.
And Mark?
Okay, so first one is Salt in the Wounds, and that's Whitby Pier. And if you look incredibly closely just there at the end of the pier, you can actually see the author just falling into the sea because his son let go of him. So that's the first one. Then the second one was The River Runs Deep, which was the follow-on to that. And then the third one, which is just out now, is The Echo of Bones. And for any of you who know your Christian burial sites incredibly well, that is the Lilla Cross on the North Yorkshire Moors, the oldest Christian burial site in England. That's it. Those are the books. And Salt in the Wounds is £1.99, so not quite as cheap as the Awais' book, but just been a phenomenal pleasure writing the books. And Michael Brady is now as essential to me as my left leg, so I'm kind of stuck with him, and there'll be loads more to come.
And then all that's left for me to say is thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you
Great
so much.
pleasure. Thanks very much
Thank you,
indeed
yeah.
for even at short notice. Real pleasure.
It has been, yeah.